Okay, we're going to do part 3 here. We're on the back, so part 3 is more radicals. Evaluate each expression. You can use the calculator. Well, what I'm telling you is that to evaluate means to come up with a number, and this means that you could be getting a decimal. We're not going to simplify it. You can certainly do a factor tree, but I'm actually telling you, hey, let's type square root of 1024 and see what we get. Oh, that's 32. If you do a factor tree, you'll be pulling out a bunch of 2's and you'll end up with 32, but it's a lot easier if that's a perfect square. Now, the cube root of 1000, that means the cube root, that little 3 there, we say the cube or the third root. Cube root or third root. Now there's actually a button on the calculator. If you go to math, right beneath the alpha key, math, and look at choice number 4 here, that's your cube root. So the cube root of 1000, that's 10. So what that tells you actually is that 10 times 10 times 10 is equal to 1000. That's a perfect cube. Cube root of 216, math, number 4, and we get 6. The last one here, the square root of 64, well, the square root of 64 is 8. So hopefully we already know that. You can always do square root 64 to type it. We're going to multiply that by the cube root of 64. Now the cube root of 64, we'll go math, number 4. We'll hit enter. The cube root of 64 is 4. So 64 is an interesting number because it's a perfect square and it's a perfect cube. 4 times 4 times 4. And then 8 times 4 equals 32. And that's it. All right, the last examples here, we're going to simplify the following radical expressions. The cube root of 24. Now what will happen, we're going to do a factor tree. And I'm doing this kind of quickly, so you can feel free to do this yourself, to pause it and see if you get the same thing I do. When I do a cube root and all my prime numbers, 2 times 2 times 2 times 3, when it's a square root, I'm looking for pairs of numbers. When it's a cube root, a third root, I'm looking for groups of 3. Now we have a group of 3. We have 3 2's. 2 times 2 times 2 is actually 8. Now just to show you that that's a perfect cube, math, number 4, the cube root of 8 is 2. So what happens when I have a perfect cube, I can pull this out, just like with the square root, with the pairs. If I pull out a group of 3, I only write it one time, and then whatever's left over on the inside stays on the inside. So the answer is 2, and that's cube root 3. When you write that for the cube root, kind of put it between these two lines here so that you're not confusing it with an exponent for the 2. And that's our answer. And again, I can always type. I can type the cube root of 24. This was the original problem, some decimal. And then our answer was 2 times the cube root of 3. And it's the same thing. So that means we simplified it correctly. All right, let's go 54. Cube root 54, that's 2 times 27. 27 is 3 times 9, and 9 is 3 times 3. As you do this, you start to realize, okay, I have 3 3's. I know that I'm going to be looking for a group of 3 of a number because of this cube root. Well, there's my perfect cube. That's really 27 if I multiply it, and the cube root of 27 is 3. So what we end up with, our answer is 3 times the cube root of 2. That is equal to the cube root of 54. Let's do one more of these. So let's break down 375. Let's see, we can definitely divide by 5, but also 75 we can divide by 25, and that will be 15 times. 375, let me make sure I did that right, divided by 25 equals, boom, 15. Okay. 25 is 5 times 5, 15 is 5 times 3, and again, notice that we have a group of 3 right here. So one thing you can start doing, instead of rewriting this like I am, since you already might recognize, hey, I have a group of 3 right here, you can just pull that out right away. Now there's still this 3 left over. I can't do anything with that. That'll stay under. So our answer is 5 times the cube root of 3. Okay, so if you don't want to rewrite the radical with the prime numbers, you can go from the tree. You just have to be careful that you're counting everything correctly. All right, the last 2 here. Number 9 is kind of like the one we did on the front. 4 square root 10 equals the square root of what? Well, if I put the 4 back in there, that means that we must have had 2 4s to have pulled them out because it's a square root. 10 times 4 times 4 is 160. That was the original number underneath. If it was a cube root, 4 times the cube root, well, to pull a number out, that means you must have had 3 of them for a cube root, so it's 10 times 4 times 4 times 4. So if I multiply all that, what we get is 640. Let's see, does that work? Well, the cube root of 640 is a decimal. 4 times the cube root of 10 is the same decimal. That means that we did this right. That means that this is our answer, and that means we're done with the notes.